All right, welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, episode 26 now. I'm your co-host, Chris, and I'm the philosophy professor and the Steelers fan of the group.
And I am your other co-host. I'm Ajay. I'm the psychiatrist and Chiefs fan in the group. Thanks to all of you who are following along here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, it can be downloaded wherever you download podcasts. Also, thanks to those of you that follow our film reviews that are available on the YouTube channel. And I put the Chiefs film review, I think, will be coming out tonight or tomorrow morning. And then the Steelers one probably tomorrow night or the day after. And also thanks to you that follow along on social media. We are at STCF715. That's always my cue to start looking up a comment of the week. We're at STCF715 on
I'll buy some time
Twitter,
here.
TikTok, and Instagram. I know which comment I'm going to pick. I just got to find it. I learned a new term from the comment of the week, well, actually, I'm going to read you the comment and see if you know this term or if you can
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So the clip that I gave was, and funnily enough, we got the same term used on YouTube and on TikTok, completely separate people. So I posted a clip of the Chiefs playing the 49ers. And if you recall, there was a play where Mahomes got pressure and kind of had to sidestep a couple guys in the pocket, and then he flipped like a shovel backhanded to Xavier Worthy. And so I was praising Mahomes, and I got on YouTube first. I noticed the YouTube short that I put out. I got a couple comments where the person just said glaze, and I was like, okay. And then on TikTok, someone said, Adam is the person's TikTok name. He said, Bryce Young can make that same play, holy glaze. And then he did a laughing while crying emoji. And I was like, I don't know that I've ever felt more old because I have no idea what these people are talking about. But I looked it up on Urban Dictionary, and apparently to glaze someone is to praise them to the point of it being annoying, like undeserved, like excessive praise in an annoying fashion.
That's good. But not like necessarily to their face. It's just like...
Yeah,
it's just praising it. Okay.
Like you're talking up somebody in a way that like is unwarranted to the point of being annoying, I think is the way that I processed it.
Can you do it to an inanimate object? Could I glaze like my monitor or something like that?
I don't know. I mean, my instinct would be yes, but I guess we'd have to ask the youths. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe this is to be determined, right? We'll see how the concept develops.
But I thought it was nice to me because I felt like it just perfectly fits my conception of how much that Mahomes does is just taken for granted these days. Like if your conclusion is that Bryce Young can do something like that, I was like, wow, that's like Bryce Young can't even set foot on a football field when Andy Dalton's healthy. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know what I mean, glazing that's a nice term. I do like it. I feel like this is like someone must have been looking for a time to use that and thought this was it. Let's see if I glaze. See, I gotta learn how to use this because I would like. My instinct would be I would like to glaze some of Russell Wilson's deep passes, or at least one of them in this game. But if I can only glaze Russell Wilson, I don't know if I like the sentence Chris glazed Russell Wilson that well. So I will try to avoid doing so. Anyway, so we have again, fortunately, two fun games to talk about this week. Both teams won. I think this season is going a lot better than I expected for the Steelers so far. I'm not used to this, at least not recently. So it's exciting that we're both like to have. What do we have? 13 combined wins at this point in the season. That's pretty awesome. I would not have picked that. I would have picked. I mean, I'm not surprised the Chiefs are undefeated, but for the Steelers to be at this point is welcome, but shocking. So should we? What order do you want to do things in? I can't remember. I don't know if we've been alternating or what, but I'm happy to do the Chiefs first if that's easiest. That was chronologically the first game.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Um, so, I mean, I guess the one other piece of news is that Josh, I cannot say this name very well, Josh Uche,
Yeah,
signing
apparently, I found out since he's now a chief, he's been recently saying he wants it pronounced Joshua Uche,
Uche.
which
Okay.
is because I've definitely been calling him saying Uche for his entire career up until this point, but
Yeah.
it's apparently Joshua Uche.
Is that like always been the correct pronunciation, or is that like now that I'm a chief, I will change?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to get back on that one. That the impression I got was that I don't know that he had broadly clarified it until recently. I mean, kind of in the not exactly. This isn't a one-to-one comparison, but you know how like Jason Owe went to Odafe Owe,
Yeah.
like which
Yeah.
was I mean that is his name. He was just going by Jason for a while. I don't know if he was just more accepting of a mispronunciation of his name and now he's not any like he's clarifying it. I'm not sure, but I don't remember anyone ever saying Uche until now, and so I'm glad he clarified it. Now,
Yeah.
hopefully, we will all say it right.
That's a, it just raises like a totally different question, which I now maybe want to just ask you about. But like what is your, I guess I haven't been put in the situation because I think my name is like fairly hard to mispronounce. I don't know what I would do if someone, like, do I care? Do I not? I've never had to decide whether I care. So I just don't know if someone, like, whether someone mispronounces my name. My instinct is that I
I
don't think I care, but I don't know.
Yeah, I have never cared, and I think part of it was like growing up in Missouri, my name was mispronounced a lot, so I think I just kind of got used to it, and
I think I mispronounce your name all the time. I think, so I
I
apologize.
I honestly don't even I don't know. The like my thing is always I will never say my name wrong. There is an exception to that now. When I am placing an order at a restaurant and they are going to need to call out my name, I just say AJ because it makes everyone's life easier. Because like people will hear different things and then you don't know if they're actually calling your name.
Yeah,
But that's the only time. Otherwise, like if people ask me, I'll tell them how to say it. But if people say it wrong, I don't. As long as I know you're talking to me, like I don't really care.
yeah. I guess that's like, well, anyway, there's all sorts of like in academia, do you call your professor by their first name or by their last name? And
Oh yeah, what is it
doctor,
like in the
professor.
philosophy community?
I think it depends on the person, and it's just. I mean, I tell my students just to call me Chris, but I don't think I would judge someone that said call me doctor whatever or call me professor whatever. I just feel like I might as well come across as a little bit personable uh, as much as I can. So I just call me by my first name, but a lot of them will still call me like Doctor Dorst or whatever, which is funny because that's what I think of my dad as. But yeah, I don't know. What's it like for you? Do patients call you Doctor Nair?
Yeah, patience for sure. And I think there is a little bit of a like wanting to keep like a little bit of a you I think there's some I don't know, some kind of expectation that comes with having like a physician and so
Yeah,
but definitely
yeah,
like trainees or like colleagues or anybody else like even if I'm signing emails or messages to like anybody, I just write a J. Like I don't write
yeah,
unless it's to a patient. I will not ever sign an email like Dr. Nair.
yeah. I can see that. But where is a patient, you kind of want to. They expect you to have this sort of authority role, so you might as well
Yeah,
show
and
that.
I wonder if it's different in different places because like New York has a culture very much about like setting boundaries and like having certain expectations of the doctor patient relationship and things like that that I think we're not there as much in Missouri, but I don't know. Also though, like in Missouri, like I called all of my supervising doctors like Dr. Blank, whereas in New York that's not really the case. Some do, some don't. Like it's a lot more fluid. I personally don't really care what people call me. I feel like I establish it more with just patience. Beyond that, I don't really care.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, anyway, back to Joshua Uche. Do you have thoughts on the on that signing? I mean, he's been a good player.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that because like ultimately this deal for the Patriots, I don't really get why they did it, which is the only kind of concern I have because they're getting a 2026 sixth round pick, which presumably is exactly what they would have got in the compensatory formula if he left. Like that's kind of the minimum they would have got, unless they thought he was going to sign a vet minimum deal somewhere. So it's kind of like you're essentially getting nothing, just giving him to us early rather than cutting him loose as a free agent. So I don't know. Maybe he just was really unhappy there, and so they were like, might as well accelerate this process. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess it saves them some money if they care about actually paying the cash, or I don't know.
is the worry that there's some sort of health issue that you don't know about yet, or I don't even know what the issue would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm always just a little wary when somebody is willing to give somebody up for cheap, but who knows? I mean, the Titans. Well, we'll get to DeAndre Hopkins in a minute, but they didn't give him up for a lot, and I was very happy with what I saw on Sunday.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I think he's going to be interesting because he's a departure from what Steve Spagnuolo had done up until the last couple years. I think one of the biggest changes in Steve Spagnuolo, I would say, since it really kind of started a little bit in 2020, but it really accelerated in 2022, was that he had such a prototype of guys he was looking for in most positions. And so for a defensive end pass rusher, he's looking for like a Frank Clark, like a big guy that mainly rushes with power, that's strong, that sets a strong edge against the run. Joshua Uche is not that. Joshua Uche is like a speed rusher, pass rushing down specialist, like don't put him on the field when they're going to run it kind of guy. And I think Spagnuolo has gotten a little more willing to get these guys that are a little more specialized and rotate them in. So I expect him to be like a third down and a second and long player exclusively. Like we're not going to put him in on early downs. He's probably never going to be in on the base sets unless they try to use him as like a Sam linebacker kind of thing. But I mean, we already have Leo Chenal who's been awesome in that role, so we don't really need that. So I mean, I'm excited about it. I think that he can be used, like he'll make some of our third down passing situations really, really effective, because one thing that's kind of quietly been happening this year is the Chiefs have not been getting a ton of pressure without blitzing. Occasionally, like Chris Jones has been doubled a lot. George Karlaftis had a slow start to the year, although he's really picked it up in the last couple of weeks, and we still don't have Charles Omenihu back. But so I'm excited about this. I think that we can really use him well, and probably he'll be really effective on those third downs. We really struggled in third down early against the Raiders, giving up a lot of conversions. So he'd be great in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, well, do you want to get into the Raiders game then? I mean, general thoughts about it, and offense was pretty good. I mean, I thought you said that you thought this was the best Mahomes had looked in a while. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think overall it's a really encouraging game that this team might kind of really find a groove soon. The offense looked really sharp early on. And honestly, this was a fairly comfortable game, even though the final score was 27-20. I think the defense let the kind of early script for the Raiders did well against us for 2 drives, and then the defense essentially just shut the door after that. I consider this game like the defense essentially gave up 10 points. The only reason this game got close at all was because the team essentially self-destructed in the third quarter. We had a couple drives where, like, just absolutely blown up by holding calls. Like, one thing has been fairly consistent with Andy Reid throughout, even in the Mahomes era when we've been really good, is the offense is not that good when we're like backed up inside our 10. We end up like really changing our play. I don't know. We get conservative and stupid at the same time, and often just get like a quick 3 and out and punt in those situations. And this time we actually had a couple decent plays, but Wanye Morris was really struggling with Max Crosby at this time. He got a couple holding calls. We punted, and then Joshua Williams had a stupid 15-yard penalty, so we gave them a short field, and they got a field goal. Then, due to a penalty on the kickoff return, we got backed up again, and Trey Smith got walked right back into Mahomes' lap, which caused Mahomes to the ball was deflected by a defensive lineman and intercepted. Again, we talk about somehow when we get balls tipped to the line. This one was like tipped right out of his hand. Like it was almost as if like the guy hit his arm because it just caused the ball to be like a pop fly.
Yeah.
And the Raiders got the ball down to our 3-yard line, and then we stuffed them 4 straight times, and we turned it over on downs, which was awesome. But if not for that sequence kind of in the middle, so when that started, the Chiefs were up 17-10. When that whole sequence ended, it was 17-13. We came down and scored a touchdown to make it 24-13, and the game was essentially done at that point. Like the Raiders, we basically played a prevent defense and let them come down the field and score to make it 27-20, but the game was never in doubt at that point.
Yeah. So this was like perfectly like, where would you rank this on Mahomes' performances this year? Let me put it that way.
Probably second. I thought his best game was against the Ravens. At least he was really good in the first half. I thought he was almost as good in the first half this week too. He was just doing a lot more with less, because one thing the Raiders did do really well, which has not been common for us this year, is we could not run the ball. We've been like possibly the best rushing offense. When you look at just like success rate, obviously we're not busting long runs, so our yardage isn't that great, but we normally have been moving the ball extremely effectively I think we have the fewest yard runs for losses in the league. But this game we really struggled to move the ball on the ground like we normally do, and Mahomes had to pick up slack, and he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kelsey was, I was getting the numbers here, but he had a good game, right? I mean, he was targeted 12 times, 10 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah. What did you make of Hopkins in his first action?
Hopkins, well, first, just to comment on Kelsey, like it's kind of going under the radar, but Kelsey's now on pace to get over 800 yards this year. And if you look at his last, I think 4 games, he's on pace for like 11, almost 1,200 yards. So he's like quietly become Kelsey of old over the last 4 games, and I don't think people are really noticing.
Yeah. I mean, he looked really in, like, there was an earlier game this year, I can't remember what it was, like week 3 or something, where he looked kind of out of it or something. But from what I saw him in this game, he was really, like, I would say enthused. I mean, he was having a good game, so why not? But
I think DeAndre Hopkins looked way better than I expected. Like, he looks good. He is beating man coverage, like, easily. He's finding spots in the zones. I mean, his 2 receptions were, like, key moments. Like, one was an early 3rd down. He sat in the zone, and he and Mahomes were on the same page. Mahomes threw it before he had his break, and they were on the same page there. They just missed another one where the opposite happened. I think both guys were thinking of an open area that would have worked. They just both picked different ones, and so the pass looked like it was overthrown. Mahomes thought he was going to go more to the corner, and he flattened it out, and both areas were open. And then his catch in the 2-minute drill, he beat man coverage, and that was a really good play. Like, he looks, I mean, he's going to get open, and Holmes is going to find him and trust him. I mean, I expect DeAndre Hopkins to be, 60 to 80 yards a game. Like, I think this is going to be like a legit number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
He had some juice. I was so pleasantly surprised. I'm very excited.
That's I mean, that's pretty awesome. I'm jealous too. We Steelers keep like holding out on making any wide receiver moves, and we'll see why or whether that pays off. But
I have to bring up the irony of the Steelers refusing to trade Deontay Johnson to the Chiefs because they didn't want him to go to an AFC
Yeah.
contender, and now he's a Raven.
Yeah, and we
That's
get 2 games
hilarious.
against the Ravens coming up too. Like if we had already played the Ravens once, at least that would have happened. But no, we got to play them twice. That's fun stuff. Yeah, we'll see. Um, I mean, yeah. Anyway, back to the Chiefs. We got to take a break in just a minute here. I wanted to ask about the defense too because the run defense was incredible in this game. I feel like you guys must have the best run defense in the league. Uh, uh, the Raiders' average yards per carry must have been like ridiculously low, but Madison had 14 attempts for 15 yards. That's like Jerome Bettis numbers, but over over 14 carry. Like that's incredible. Yeah, maybe we should take a break and then talk a bit about defense when we come back because I don't want to get cut off here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can talk defense on the other side of the break.
Okay, and we're back. So yeah, do you want to talk a bit about the defensive performance in this game? Like, I mean, I was just marveling at the run defense, but big picture, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like two things are unusual this year. One is that the Chiefs have never been a good run defense. We always like preach it, and then we will play really well against the run in the playoffs or against teams that are like solely keying on the run, especially in the playoffs. Like I don't, even when we would like play the Ravens early in the season in the past, they'd run all over us and then we'd still make it a close game. But this year has been different. We are a good run defense this year, which is unusual for us. And I think part of the reason is that I feel like the Chiefs were always like a sub-package defense. Like Spags would do all of his crazy stuff when we had 5 or 6 defensive backs on the field. But now I feel like he's really embraced being crazy in the base defense too, which is helping, the kind of our ability as a team to do things. We just it seems like base isn't just something we were forced to do. So I guess I should clarify this just in case there are people watching that don't use the terms that I'm using. But base defense basically means that you have 4 defensive backs on the field and you have the other 7 players are either defensive linemen or linebackers. Kind of depending on what formation you use, there might be different numbers of those. But if you have a nickel package, that means you add a defensive back on the field and usually you remove a linebacker. And then if you have a dime package, that means you add a 6th defensive back and you usually only have 1 linebacker on the field, typically in those situations. So the Chiefs tend to do their fun stuff out of nickel and dime formations, and they are in base just because the other team lines up with a lot of heavy personnel, and so they get into base and then get exploited. But this year, that has not been the case. Way more comfortable being in base now. And the other thing that's weird is through most of Spagnuolo's tenure, the defense has started very slow and built up through the year and kind of hits its stride in the playoffs. And last year and this year, that has not been the case. The defense has been ready to go from the start. And they are still building up. Like Karlaftis is getting better. I think Nick Bolton has steadily improved. Leo Chanel's been great all year. The only worry is now that Jalen Watson went down, that second corner position is the other thing that might come back to bite us. We'll kind of see how we deal with that.
Yeah, what was how did it go in this game? Was that an issue at all?
Not particularly. What it looked like was that early in the game, the Chiefs were very concerned and they were using their safeties. Oftentimes our safeties play really aggressively, and that's what they are good at. Neither of our Brian Cook or Justin Reed are really center field guys. They do great when they're coming forward. But I think we dropped safeties back more in this game early on because we were worried about protecting our corners. That kind of changed as the game went on, though. I think we stopped worrying so much about. We kind of just played our game a little bit more after that, and it looked a lot better. So I didn't see, even though Joshua Williams had a bad holding penalty, and Najee Johnson went out with a concussion. I don't know. I wouldn't say that like this game was one that really like moved my opinion either way. It's like it's still something that concerns me, but it wasn't like a huge hole in this game either.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think they, I mean, like if you were telling me the second corner went down, you know, I think you might have been more concerned about, you know, getting exploited there, and it seems like they were pretty fine in this game at least. I mean, maybe that's because it was Gardner Minshew and the Raiders, but I don't. I mean, that, we had a, I mean, we had a somewhat competitive game with them earlier this year for a little while too. So I mean, I don't know. They're still a professional team. You should be able to exploit a second corner, but yeah, I mean, good. I wanted to ask sort of bigger pictures too about the Chiefs this year, maybe. But if there's more that you glean from this game, I don't want to cut us off there. So, is there anything more that you want to talk about from this performance?
Just that this game I think started to bring about some like left tackle questions again. Troublingly, like, you know, so we had Kingsley Suamataia for the first two games of the year, and then Kingsley got benched in the second game because Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals was just running roughshod over him. Wanye Morris came in and looked okay for a little while, but unfortunately, I feel like as time goes on, he's looking worse, which is not a good sign. I think it makes it feel like teams are learning more and more how to exploit him. But Mahomes doesn't look as uncomfortable behind Wanye as he did behind Kingsley. And I think I heard the best theory I heard about that was I was listening to a podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network, and I think it was Matthew Lane that said that Kingsley was getting beaten in a variety of ways, and so it was a lot less predictable. Wanye Morris is getting beaten around the edge every time, and so Mahomes knows he can like step up away from that rush all the time. So at least there's that. So I don't know. That's just going to be something to keep an eye on. Like, are the Chiefs going to stick with Wanye? I guess it just depends on Mahomes' comfort. Since he looks more comfortable, I'm guessing maybe they will. But they, at one point at least, thought Kingsley was the future. And are they going to invest in that? Or are they going to be like, we got to win the Super Bowl this year, and we'll think about developing anybody after that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he can still develop on the bench or whatnot, just not as much, I guess. But that's a nice theory that, you know, if you're going to lose, at least lose in the way that I expect you to lose, or like in a predictable way, right? So I know how to plan for that. Whereas I guess you know, if a rookie is going to lose, they can lose in all sorts of different ways. So that kind of makes sense. On the bigger picture, I just sort of wanted to get your thoughts on, like, you know, the Chiefs at this point, they're 7-0. I feel like in the last couple of weeks they haven't, you know, I mean, it's not like it's been totally easy, but they haven't really been pushed that hard, I didn't think, in any of these games. Maybe since, I don't know, when was the last time you would say they were like, certainly the Bengals game, but I mean, Atlanta had them maybe a little bit tense at times, but I mean, probably in your perspective, it was more tense than it was from a sort of objective or, you know, from my perspective, but it hasn't felt like they've been really in a place where they should have been worrying for a little while now. And so just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, where are you thinking the season can go? Like, are there any games on the schedule that you're like really worried about at this point? Or do you think they should be able to handle everybody? And if they don't, it'll be like, you know, they just had an off week or something.
Yeah, I agree. I would even say that maybe the Bengals game is the only game all season where there's been any reason to worry. Like, I think there's been a little bit of a revisionist history about the Ravens game, given since Isaiah Likely was just like a toe out of bounds. But like, you know, we were fairly in control for most of that game, and yeah, they came back and almost tied it or had a chance to go for two and win. But I don't know that was a game where I felt like there was any time we weren't the better team. The Bengals game would be the one where, you know, that strip sack and then Shamari Connor returning the fumble for a touchdown was a huge play in a game that we won by 1 point. So going forward, honestly, I'm a little annoyed. I don't know if you remember, but on our preview podcast, I was jumping between two unlikely but plausible things for the AFC West, and the one that I did not choose was that the Chiefs will go undefeated this year. And I'm a little annoyed that I didn't stick with that. I ended up, what did I end up? I think I ended up picking that like no other team in the AFC West gets to 8 wins, which will be tough because the Broncos I think already have 5, and the Chargers have 4.
Yeah, I don't think of the Broncos as good this year, even this year, but
no,
they're still winning somehow.
But yeah, the game I think is the game at the Bills. That's the game because not only because the Bills are playing well this year, but also because I just think this game will mean a lot more to the Bills than it will mean to us, which is how a lot of regular season games against the Bills go. I mean, not that I don't think we're going to try to win, but they will be a lot more motivated than we are. So that'll be the game. If we win that game, I mean, the only other game that one could say one is worried about is the Texans at home, but I don't think the Texans are as good as their record says this year.
Yeah. I mean, the Texans don't really. I mean, they don't feel like a dominant team. They feel like a team that does win, but it's not one that you would be worried about in the way that I can see you being worried about the Bills because you're going to get a really good shot from them. They have a lot of pent-up anger probably about the Chiefs over the years. But, everyone's giving you their best shot, and you're I feel like just like every game is like, it's like a little, you can maybe tense in the first half, but that's because you both started 0-0. So it's going to be a little bit tense then, right? And then, you just gradually pull away as the game goes on mostly. And, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they've been in a position where they needed to be that stressed since maybe the Bengals game.
Yeah. Although I will say, if Russell Wilson keeps putting it together, that at Steelers might be a more difficult game than I expected. We've got 30 points in 3 straight games now. We
only got 26 last.
Oh yeah. For some reason, mentally, I had already given you that extra touchdown, and then Wilson fumbled.
Yeah. No, we didn't. We didn't get to 30, but it was fine. I mean, I'm not sold yet that we're going to be that good, but. I can hope that. There's reason at least to hope. So, I mean, depending on how this goes, and also, maybe Cleveland's good now. You do play at Cleveland.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's definitely not a situation where I'm sure we're going to win all these other games. It's just that, I feel like if both teams play their best I think if we played our best against the Bills, we'd beat them too. But I think that, more times than not, I expect us winning most of these games except possibly the Bills game. And I mean, Denver recently, with the way that their defense has been playing, they just managed to keep games low scoring, and then anything can happen. I think in the division, oddly enough, I'm probably most worried about Denver. Maybe that's like PTSD because we lost at Denver last year. But if we hadn't lost to Denver, I think we had won our last 16 in a row against Denver. The last time we had lost to them was week 2 of 2015 or something. So I don't know. I mean, we could lose any of these games except maybe at the Panthers. But I'm not terribly worried about any of them except at the Bills.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean that for all the hand-wringing there's been about Mahomes has not been as good this year or whatnot. I mean, I think if you watch the games, they haven't been as a complete package. This is a really really good team. I mean, have they been pushed much? Honestly, not really. Maybe except for that Bengals game. So I think it's just hard to know in some sense how good they are because they haven't been really pushed that much, at least in my view. So
I think too, here's a somewhat controversial prediction. I don't know, I wouldn't say controversial, bold at least prediction. So I'm looking at Mahomes' stats through 7 games. He's at 1651 as far as passing yards. So that puts him on pace for just under 4,000. And he's got 8 touchdowns through 7 games. I think I would predict that he finishes with more than 30 touchdowns and 4,000 isn't that bold of a prediction. Is 4,500 stupid? Let's say like 43. I'll say 4,300 and at least 30 touchdowns. I think his second half is going to look. It's not going to be the like 5,000 yard, 50 touchdown pace that he had, but I think, he will look a lot better in the passing game. I don't think, I think part of the reason he won't look like stellar is that we're going to keep running the ball a lot and hopefully successfully. But I liked how the offense looked. I like how DeAndre Hopkins looks. I think that this offense is, and I think Xavier Worthy's only going to get better, and they're going to find better ways to use him. Especially now, I think Hopkins takes a ton of pressure off of Worthy because Hopkins can win in those intermediate areas that Worthy was struggling with contact in, and so we can use him more again, like just a deep threat, and then some like design gadget plays. I think Mahomes will look a lot better. I think some of this narrative about him having a bad year will go away, even though I don't think his year has been nearly as bad as people are making it out to be.
Yeah. I mean, some of that might just be just, he has had a lot of bad luck, it seems, on a lot of these like tipped passes or whatnot that have gone for interceptions that could easily have gone incomplete. I mean, it does seem natural. You're not going to expect Mahomes to finish the season with like less than 20 touchdowns, right? I mean, even at this point, he's got 8, right? He's going to get if he doesn't hit 30, he's going to be at like 29 or something. Right? So, this team is. I feel like they have not reached their ceiling, and they haven't even really been pushed to reach their ceiling. So that's. I feel like, it's kind of alarming for the rest of the AFC. I think. Good.
I think there's actually a decent chance. Like, I don't think it'll happen, but I think there's a decent chance he ends the year leading the league in touchdowns. I think he's going to be close. Like, right now he's got 8 touchdowns and Baker's leading with 21. I really feel like we're going to, Mahomes will have like 32 touchdowns, and I don't know that there are going to be many people above like 35, 36. I think he's going to get real close.
This is it's a sort of low stat year anyway, so I don't think it would be that surprising if he does end up leading in, traditionally, in stats that are traditionally very elevated because it's been such a pass-happy offense for so many years now. But anyway, they're going to be good. They are good. I just don't know how good. They're very good. Let's just put it that way. Do you want? I don't know. Is there anything else about the Chiefs before we move on to the Steelers game?
No, I think we can get to the Steelers game. Well, so let me see I find it interesting, like, to see during the game. I feel like I was a lot more confident when we were texting about like how the game would end.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Russell Wilson with his fumble made it way closer than even I expected it was going to be. But looking back on it, like, do you feel like that game was ever in doubt in the second half, or what is your retrospective opinion?
It's hard. It definitely felt in doubt like the most of the time. I mean, we took a 2-score lead at one point, and I like breathed a sigh of relief, but not a big one because it did feel like our defense was not playing the way they had been, or the way you would have expected them to be playing. So I was worried the whole time, basically. Let's put it that way. When I look back at it, I think it's. I think Wilson did play pretty well in this game. Some of the deep balls, I'm not positive about their placement, but overall, like he was above competent. I think he was good in this game, and if we can get that repeatedly, that's nice. But this game was definitely stressful for me. Let's put it that way. It felt like we could easily lose it, or at least if not easily lose it, easily get into overtime or something like that. Because we didn't like Daniel Jones looked fairly good in this game. He did throw that pick at the end, but like when you have to pass it to catch up, you end up forcing things and throwing picks. It's just sort of I think he was good honestly in this game, and we could not stop their running game. It was like our run defense has some serious work to do in the bye week here, but so. I guess this is the kind of game that I was thinking we might get, like, ahead of time early in the week. I was very confident, and I expected that by Monday night I would be very worried. And I honestly, like, it was a stressful weekend and week, so I didn't have a lot of time to be worried about it before the game. But during the game, I was like, yeah, I'm not comfortable, and I was not comfortable for the whole thing, basically.
It's interesting because I actually don't like my read watching the game was I didn't feel like Daniel Jones played that well. Like I was not. I thought Russell Wilson was a lot better than Daniel Jones. Not just like I agree that a lot of his deep balls are not that accurate, but I think it's reproducible. Like there is value in underthrowing a lob deep ball, and he does it over and over again. Like it's the Flacco.
It is. I do wonder how much of it is intentional. I mean, when you see it happen, your first instinct is that was underthrown, but maybe it was underthrown on purpose, right? A lot of these are kind of like back shoulder deep balls,
and
they're not
even
a
if
place
it's
where the
not,
receiver can get it, but not the defender.
even if it's not on purpose, it might be with a like I don't really care where this goes as long as it has this trajectory, and I feel like that's kind of. If it's underthrown, it's fine. If it hits him in stride, it's fine. What it feels like he's doing is just making sure he doesn't overthrow. And it's like anywhere else, it's fine. Like you give your receiver a chance, or you probably get a pass interference call, or because once you have the defender trailing, like you can underthrow it. That's fine. They're not going to get their head around.
Yeah, that's maybe that's the thinking there. I mean, the deep one to Jefferson. Was I think the first real deep shot in this game, maybe if I'm remembering it correctly, but
I think
that was definitely underthrown. Like I don't think you would put it there intentionally, but it did end up working out, right?
Yeah.
The best one was that corner shot to Pickens, which was actually less of a moon ball than his typical deep shots. It had some heat on it, and that was perfectly placed. I thought that was I haven't seen a pass like that since, well, at least not by the Steelers since like Ben Roethlisberger in his prime, probably 2015, 2016, 2017. But so that was fun to see. But time will tell, I guess, if that was a fluke and Wilson's mostly just sort of like putting it up there and letting the receiver do the work, or if he actually does have the accuracy still. I honestly can't tell.
Yeah, that throw to Pickens was amazing. I would say that I don't think Fields made any throws that good, but Fields made throws of that nature. Like I feel like that's what Fields' deep ball looks like, except maybe not. Like he put that one on a button, Wilson did, but like. That's why I think I'm so enamored with Fields is that when he throws the ball deep, it's just like, holy moly, his arm is amazing. Whereas Wilson's don't look so good, but they're effective.
Yeah. People talk about like how Wilson's one of the best deep ball throwers. And like, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, right? I guess stats wise, maybe. But yeah, I agree that Fields' deep ball is like a lot more impressive to watch, right? It has that sort of heat on it, and it can be pinpoint in its accuracy sometimes when he is accurate.
And I think one thing I will say, like that, I think this has come to me from watching Mahomes over the last couple of years with like inconsistent receiver play, especially last year on deep balls, and like as I watch more film, I feel like deep ball statistics are as much, maybe even more a receiver stat than a quarterback stat. Because like when you throw a ball up there, like so much depends on the receiver's ability to track it. And receivers often make quarterbacks look accurate sometimes on deep balls. Not when they're underthrown, like that's a clear, like you can tell on that. But if you don't underthrow a ball, like a lot of it depends on whether the receiver can track it. So I remember from this year, the biggest example I can think of is the Saints had a 4th down play against the Chiefs. And Derek Carr was facing a blitz and just like lofted a ball up in the air. And his receiver, whose name I forget now, like completely veered off course, tracked the ball, and was looking like straight up over his head and like went out and the ball went through his hands. And everyone was like, well, Derek Carr just dropped a dime and the guy dropped it. And I was like, it looks like he dropped a dime because the receiver completely veered off course, like found the ball and was able to track it like that and tried to make a really hard catch and wasn't able to come down with it. And so I feel like sometimes on deep passes, like it's really dependent on what the receiver does more than the quarterback. They're just kind of laying it out there and you got to go get it.
Yeah, and that's pretty plausible to me that it's almost more of a receiver stat than a quarterback stat. I mean, there's certainly plays where you would say, "Oh, that was like all on the quarterback," but
like
I mean,
when they throw one on a line, like a deep pass on a line, that's on the quarterback. Or I feel like when they back shoulder or underthrow it, that's definitely like there's nothing the receiver can do on that one. But I feel like a moon ball that is going either at the receiver level or up beyond, a lot of it depends on the tracking.
Yeah, I just think that the deep pass that Wilson had to Calvin Austin, this one for the touchdown, was a bit underthrown, and Austin made it look better than it was because he slowed up a bit on the route at the end, but made it look like it fell right in the breadbasket there. But even then, like, yeah, I mean, if that's the strategy, it's a good strategy because apparently it's working. So we'll see how long we can continue that. But I do think it's opened up the run game a lot for us. I think this is like 3 straight weeks now that Harris has had over 100 yards, and it's not like he's getting a ton of carries. He's been around 20 carries or so, or even less, even fewer. But he's like, I don't think he's had 3 straight 100-yard rushing games in his career. And now at this point he does. So the deep passing that Wilson's been hitting, I think, is opening up, or even not hitting. Like I think early in this game we were getting a lot of success in the running game, maybe just because they were worried about the deep passing game from last week. So, we got a good recipe right now. We'll see what teams do to adjust to it. But it does look, Wilson, I think it is big on the sort of big play hunting. And so I think we will keep seeing those deep shots in one way or another. Yeah, I think the offense is in a promising place right now, the most promising that I've seen in a good handful of years here for us.
Well, and one more other thing I'll say, because it'll be interesting to see based what the film looks like from this game, but the Jets were not really respecting the deep ball. Like, they had an extra guy in the box even when you all were running it well, which I think is a very good sign for the run game. They were playing single high a lot, and even like a couple of Najee Harris's big runs at the end of that game, they were still playing single high and daring you guys to go deep. And so if you're able to run against those looks, like when teams start having to drop the extra safety, it'll be feasting.
Yeah, with all the injuries on the offensive line, and I keep attributing the rushing success to the passing game opening it up, but maybe I should. I mean, the line is, for all their injuries, playing pretty well, I think. I mean, you're not going to get holes like we were getting there without good line play.
And you do seem to have guys that are probably better run blockers than pass blockers. I mean, by far, I would say Broderick Jones is a way better run blocker than pass blocker.
Is that a compliment or not?
I mean, he's... Some would dispute whether he is a pass blocker, but he is a run blocker, at least at times.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say the same for Mason McCormick. The interior line in general, I think, is better at run blocking because the young guys up front get really messed up by like stunts and games in the pass game sometimes. I remember Fields having to bail out of a lot of pockets because the interior would just get confused about who they're blocking, and But in the run game, I feel like, especially because the Steelers tend to run, at least on the big plays. I don't sit and watch the film of every single play, so I don't know. But the big plays, a lot of them seem to be like gap scheme runs that are specifically designed to hit a hole. So like everybody knows what they're doing. There's not so much decision making from the line. I feel like they do really well in those cases.
I do think that's right, and I think that plays to our strengths, right? Like you're not have. I don't like for as awesome as Najee Harris is, his power and his he's quick in short spaces. I don't think his vision has ever been that good. So it's like he knows where he's supposed to run. That also is helpful, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so like more like gap scheme stuff makes sense. Just like we are trying to open this hole rather than having the running back read it out. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so offense. I mean, it's exciting. The defense is the sort of the red flag, at least after this game. I don't. I mean,
Yeah, what do you think happened to the run game? Like what? I don't have any ideas right now. I have to go watch it. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. That was surprising.
Early on, I thought it was just that they were keeping us off balance. They had a lot of misdirection and screens and whatnot, which is, our defense, I don't think was ready for that, or at least maybe they were ready, but they were not ready at that. They didn't expect it at that time in the game or whatever it was. But as the game went on, I think it was just like we never shut down the run game. It was
I mean, that's how they got back in the game, right? They got back in the game with the long run. This game was 23-9. Like this game was over, and then I thought they were going to have to throw the ball, and apparently so did the Steelers defense, and so they allowed a 45-yard run or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been the defensive line has been, I would say, very erratic this year. They've had some really dominant looking games, and then some games like this that were just alarming in how much they're getting pushed around. I don't know what to make of it. I would be curious what the film shows after the fact, but it might just. I mean, we talked about this after what was it, the Colts game where we got pushed around a lot too. And the Colts had, at the time at least, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Yeah. They probably still do, but I don't know about the Giants as a run blocking line. So. that was surprising to me, and I don't know. Yeah, so I think I would like to say it's scheme oriented because that's fixable, but and it also might explain the sort of erraticness of the line, but like if the scheme is working against some teams and not other teams. But it could just also be that we're getting pushed around by some teams and other teams for reasons that I can't fathom. But I don't know. It's a mystery to me because they have looked at times really dominant, and how they can look that bad also is curious.
Yeah, I have been so excited about the line, and there were some games like the game against Denver, for example, where you knew they were going to run it and you stuffed the run, and I just was expecting that would carry over through the season. So having a game like this, I forgot about the Indianapolis game, but yeah, at the time we chalked it up to them having a really good line, and everybody has a bad day, but this was unexpected to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The pass defense was also like not wonderful in this, and maybe you just think that it's because they were off balance, getting run on so well. But they were, it was Daniel Jones and the Giants, right? I didn't expect to be giving up that many deep plays. I mean, they weren't deep, but they were getting good chunk plays there. So I don't know. Yeah,
there were a couple that one to Slayton early on was problematic. It's like some of the stuff to Neighbors, I'm like, okay, because he's very good. So, you're going to get got sometimes. But I felt like at least the pass game for the Giants wasn't consistent. They had like a couple, I think there was one pass to a tight end, I remember. That was like, I think he broke some tackles. But I don't know. I wasn't that bothered by the pass defense outside of like a couple bad plays.
Yeah,
but because like Neighbors is good.
Maybe but he is. Yeah, he is. And he could have. I think it was him. He had a drop on like a quick slant where if that
Oh
had
yeah.
been put on the money, that would have been maybe a touchdown too. So
Yeah, that was like that
no,
reminded me of those like Odell Beckham. Sometimes he would just take a slant and go. Like,
yeah,
and Jones, I thought again, really great analysis. I was praising Collinsworth on our last podcast, but this time Aikman, I thought the way he was talking about how Daniel Jones waits a beat too long before making a throw, I thought
yeah,
was really showed out once he like pointed it out in the replays. Like he missed a couple throws just because he wasn't throwing with anticipation. Like
yeah.
even that throw to Neighbors on the slant, like he didn't put it out in front of him. He made Neighbors have to kind of slow for it, and he still shouldn't have dropped it. But he's not throwing with anticipation. You can see why someone who doesn't do that isn't going to make it in the NFL. Like you can't.
Yes, but that's partly why this was alarming to me that our pass defense was still giving up good plays to like big plays to them, despite him not throwing with anticipation. Like if he's doing that to us, like what are we in store for against other better quarterbacks? So
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I don't know. At least we got a bye week now, and maybe we can sort out some of the issues. But it was nice to see Watt and Highsmith get in there. I think they had 4 combined sacks. It had been a little bit quiet recently. I mean, Highsmith had been injured, but Watt hadn't had a sack in like 3 games or something. So it was good to see him get back on the
And
stat sheet.
Highsmith looked awesome. He was getting pressure all the time.
Yeah, he did. It was good to see because earlier in the year we had talked about him not looking that great, not getting a ton of pressure, and then he got injured, and now he looks like he's fully back. So that's promising to see. And we also did some interesting, like we rotated them, so we switched their sides a bit, and that I think resulted in a sack or 2 as well. So that was cool. We
My
haven't done that much.
my one thing about Highsmith is, well, and this is, I would say, even more extreme for Nick Herbig, is that he always tries to win around the edge. Although he did have one play where he had a nice spin move back to the center, like he played off of it, and so I'm sure when you play with someone like TJ Watt, you'll learn a lot of the techniques and stuff. But I was struck by, I mean, look, this tackle clearly continued to get beat around the edge. So like if it's working, hey, keep doing it. But
That's
it
true.
was interesting how his plan was like the same like every single time.
Though I'll be honest, like Watt doesn't frequently win with a spin move either. Like Watt wins in really either from persistence and tenacity or from getting around the edge very surprisingly quickly. Uh, and he's made an incredible career out of that, essentially, in my opinion. So it's not like he has a ton of like really great moves in his repertoire either. He's just really good at what he does.
Well, he also has this uncanny. I don't think I've ever seen someone take advantage of opportunities as much. Like it's almost like he has a little bit of a sixth sense. Like there's some plays where he knows like, hold on, I'm just gonna sit back right now and just wait. And then a gap will open and he'll just like sprint through it. That's how he got one of his sacks. Like Highsmith had a great rush. And like Watt was just kind of chilling. Like he had kind of lost, he didn't have a plan. He just bided his time and then a gap opened and he flew through
Yeah,
and hit the sack. And I feel like that's how he gets some interceptions too. Like he, I don't know that I've seen like as high a ratio of like when he goes for it and to him getting a sack. Like the sack to like actual attempts on a sack ratio is very high.
yeah, he does. He's really good at like closing the gap on someone very quickly. So if he sees it, if there's an opening and he can get there, he's one of the best. Also, you had pointed out that when on the sack fumble late in the game, he was not he was not trying to knock Daniel Jones down. He was just going for the football. I think that's like, I wish he did that more frequently earlier in the game. I think he might play it slightly differently depending on when in the game it is. But it's like we need a fumble, we need a turnover here, as opposed to we just need a sack to kill this drive. Maybe it's like where the drive is on the field or something
On
like
the
that.
field,
But
yeah.
I do feel like he's really situationally aware. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Should we take a break and then wrap it up with some recap of the rest of the week? What are we, 8?
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
And we're back. All right. So we're almost out of time. So we're just going to do like a rapid fire look through a couple of the games throughout the slate on week 8. starting with let's start with the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that play? Like, was that awesome? Was that a defensive failure? Was that both? How do you view this play?
I mean, it was an awesome throw, right? And it does seem like you'd want someone like tagging along with each receiver, so to have whoever ended up, I don't even know who ended up catching it, sort of a little bit back in the end zone. Like that shouldn't be. You shouldn't let that happen. So it does feel like it was a defensive error or lapse or something like that. Then there are all these like tweets about the man, I don't remember what the player's name was, but he was like talking to the crowd even as the play started.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good look. I don't know what you don't you got to do something about that as a coach, but I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, I mean I mean like I don't know, it was awesome. I feel like it's not really replicable, but yeah, I don't know. Not the thing that you see happen very much, but cool to see it happen because of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It was fun. I definitely think it was more a defensive failure than a offensive, like an amazing. The thing that even more than obviously, like you want someone tagging with all the receivers, and then they talked about actually having like a guy behind to like watch for the tip too. But the part even more than that, because that stuff gets so confusing, and I can see like guys accidentally falling, like the ball's in the air, like they react. Like the part that I don't get is like they basically had three guys that were just like contain rushing Jaden Daniels, and then they had a fourth who was spying him, which like I would kind of want him to run. Like if anything, like I would if you rushed him really hard and he had to scramble, I feel like that would be great. Like the probability of him being able to get that in the end zone is really low. So like I didn't get that part of it where they were just like happy to let him run around back there. I mean, it just makes it harder for your back end guys to cover for that long. That was confusing to me.
I do wonder about whether it's wiser to send a little bit of extra pressure at that point on a Hail Mary in general, I guess. I mean, maybe the calculation is different against Jaden Daniels because he's more mobile, but I don't know. I mean, do you have thoughts about that? I mean, the sort of standard wisdom is that you don't send pressure on a play like that, but I don't know.
I feel like I could see rushing 5. Like at least like because if you are able to get home with a fairly standard pass rush, like they don't have time to get everybody down the field and set,
Yeah.
I feel like 5 is probably like a nice number, but even if you're gonna rush 4, like I feel like you like rush them. Don't like have them sit contain, and definitely don't waste a guy being a spy. Like I think the goal should be like go at like try to sack him. Like don't be. Yeah, but I agree with you. I feel like I would be a little too risk averse to send like 6 or 7 probably, but I feel like 5's good.
I don't want 7, especially because like at that point you worry about them doing some sort of
like break a tackle,
not actually doing a Hail Mary, but just like intermediate pass, and then do some laterals or something like that. Which you want people back there to be able to stop that. But I don't know, but I'm not the defensive coordinator, so I don't know. I don't know. There's more wisdom behind why you don't send any extra rushes. But I feel like if they could do that play again, they would send an extra rusher probably, or at least not have the spy like you were saying.
Yeah. All right.
Another fun one was the Baltimore-Cleveland game.
Oh.
What were your take on that?
Wasn't it just so Jameis Winston that they're like driving down and it's like, oh, we could get a pass to like get us in field goal range, and it's like, nope, I'm going to chuck it 39 yards for a touchdown to win the game. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was. But also just makes you wonder, like, how much was Watson holding them back, and how worried should I be? Because we have to play them twice in the last half of the season here. So I don't know. I mean, I guess Baltimore's defense all year long has not been like that great, and this was more of the same in that capacity. But their offense was not up to par in this one either. So I don't know what to make of that, whether it was Cleveland's defense or just an off day.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just be so mad if I was a Browns fan, being like, "Why were we wasting so much time with Watson?" And who knows? Maybe they'll fall off a cliff soon. Though, Jameis giveth and Jameis taketh away. But
Yeah, he
I,
does.
I, I do feel like if they play with some level of competence, it's got to be so annoying. Like, why were they sticking with Watson for that long?
Yeah.
All right, I'll move it to Bengals Eagles. I must say I derived quite a bit of satisfaction from this result, especially because the Bengals drove down and scored on their first drive, and so it was like, okay, here we go. And then the Eagles just outscored them 37-10 after that.
Yeah. I don't have a ton of insight on that one. It's just fun to watch Cincinnati sort of fall apart. And I don't even know if it's like I think they're a better team than that, but maybe it was just one of those games like this is not our year, and then you
Yeah.
sort of get demoralized and you fall apart in various phases. I feel like that could have been that kind of game. But
And weird because they do start slow all the time. Like every single year they start slow, but this year seems to be the year that they just can't overcome it.
yeah, yeah,
I don't have a ton of thoughts about the Lions Titans game, except that like it was like essentially like Goff actually wasn't that good. I know I'm just going to be the guy that always seems like he's on Jared. Or I probably shouldn't say that word on the podcast, but he the guy that is always negative about Jared Goff. But this was more like their special teams was good. I think David Montgomery threw a pass. Like
yeah.
threw a touchdown pass. Jameer Gibbs had like a 70-yard touchdown. So I don't know. They're just way better than the Titans. I don't know that there's anything to read from this game, honestly.
I mean, it's funny that I thought the Titans might be good. That's something
Oh,
to
I
say
forgot
about
that.
this game. like, wow, they are not good. But Mason Rudolph, I think, ran for a touchdown, so that's fun. Good
I
job,
heard
Mason.
Mason Rudolph this year described. So this Chiefs guy was watching Hopkins tape, and he described Mason Rudolph as like, I forget how he phrased it. It was funny the way he delivered it, but basically being like, "Buddy, are you going to throw the ball? Are you going to throw the ball?" Like, no, okay, I guess you're not going to throw the ball.
That's how I felt about him last year too. It just like hold it longer than you think he should, and then he actually did eventually throw it a number of times last year. But I guess that maybe was a fluke or something. I did want to just while we're talking about predictions we made that were good or bad. Anthony Richardson was not that good.
Oh yes.
Not that I enjoy this again, but I guess I like that I predicted that. but I don't like that he's struggling. I mean, I feel it's not good, not fun to be struggling like that. But I'm not surprised by that. I just feel like he's not an NFL quarterback. But, I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
You nailed that. I was not nearly as down on him as you were. Like, and yeah, you really. I mean, I feel like if I were anywhere, I was like cautiously optimistic about Richardson, and that was not right.
Mostly there's still time, but
yeah, but it doesn't look good. The way that they frame, like, I think, didn't he have for a while? Did he end with this? But for a while, he had like a 31% completion percentage in that game.
Yeah,
did that
he might have been,
continue?
I think he ended 10 for 31 or 10 for 32 or something like that.
10 for 32. Good.
But for like 170, I think. I mean, if I remember, I mean, it was like he's getting yards on those completions. I don't know if that's
but
or not, but
not per attempt.
yeah.
Somebody on the Ringer, I think it could have been. I don't remember if it was Stephen Rees or Shokapati had written today that Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was worse than 24 NBA teams' 3-point percentage so far this year. Well, I mean, in this game, this 31.2% was worse than most. like that's funny. Maybe we can end the podcast with this question about what do you think about the deal being made about him asking out of the game because he was tired?
Yeah.
Is this a big deal? Is it not? Is it being made to be too much?
I don't know. I do feel like it's probably being made to be a bigger deal than it is. How big of a deal is it? I guess I think I would need to know more about the situation to really properly evaluate that. But like in some sense, it's like nice self-awareness, right? It's like I'm just not going to run this next play very well. maybe it's I need to put the team ahead of me and tell and you probably know at that point I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but like I'm not going to run this play well. So there's a spin on this where it's actually a sort of very admirable move. I don't know if that's the right spin here, but I feel like I've seen a lot of negative spins, so there's a positive one. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good take, and I think to me, in a vacuum, I don't think it's a big deal at all. But the question is, does the locker room think like the media does? Or the media do, I should say. If the locker room tends to like NFL players are such that if they are like, I can't trust you if you're going to take yourself out of the game in that situation, then it's a bad move because obviously you need the faith of your teammates. But in a vacuum, it's not that big of a deal to me. And it's just going to be so funny to me how many people that have never done anything athletic in their life are like, you can't take yourself out of the game because you're tired. It's just like, okay.
I mean, the play was it was a grueling play. It's not like it was like a quick pass or something like that. I mean, he scrambled around and then eventually got tackled, I think. But
well, and I do want to clarify because I definitely am not a believer. I mean, as someone who has not played football, who is on a podcast about football, I'm not insinuating that you have to have played a sport to be able to comment on a sport. However, I think when it comes to like questioning people's toughness, that's when it comes to be like you kind of have had to have done like how would you know? You know, we can talk about like how to play the game because you can learn how to play the game if you don't play the game. But like what it feels like to get hit or what it feel like, I don't know if you can question someone's toughness if you don't have some way to measure. And so that's what frustrates me when people at home like are like, well, you got to be tougher than that. You can never do that. It's just like, well, I don't know what that's like. So if the guy's tired, I probably would have been tired a long time before then. So or dead, like, honestly. I'd probably be dead.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're that worn down, like that you have to ask out of the game. Like, yeah, maybe you're just not in a position to protect yourself, and that's like probably prudent for you too to ask out of the game at that point. So I don't know. Probably not as big of a deal as it's. I mean, I'm certain it's not as big of a deal as it's being made to be. The question is whether the fact that it's being made to be a big deal will make it a big deal. But,
yeah, or whether internally in the locker room it's a big deal. Because if the players lose faith in the quarterback, then that's obviously a big deal, regardless of if the action itself should have been a big deal.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for today. Thanks to everybody that has been following along either on our YouTube channel or downloading the podcast on whatever app you download podcasts on, or following along at STCF715 on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. We'll have some film reviews up for you later this week, along with some clips on social media, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, thanks for following along, and keep watching Jay's film reviews, which are super awesome. So. See you all next week. Steelers have a bye. The Chiefs have the
Monday night game against the Bucs.
Yeah, against the Bucs. That'll be fun. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Until next time.
See ya.